In this video I'd like to talk about railway hexes. Now obviously if you're doing fantasy wargaming, these aren't going to be very much use to you, but if you're doing World War One or Two or Modern Warfare or maybe even some Civil War gaming, you may have railroads on your setups. So the first thing you're going to have to consider is your scale. That's going to be probably determined by the miniatures that you already use. So for I tend to do fantasy wargaming where this is of no use, or World War Two. And in World War Two I use 20mm miniatures, which equates to 172 scale, maybe 176 being acceptable, which is great for using things like airfix model kits for tanks and that kind of thing. So this is what's called 00 gauge, which is what Hornby make their model railroads in. It's the most popular scale in the UK. And that equates to about 176, so it's ideal for 20mm gaming. If you're using 15mm or 6mm miniatures or anything else, just find that the scale that best fits you. But it's really useful to have a model railroad at scale in mind, because it's not just tracks, it's the trains. It's, if you want to, you can even buy ready-made buildings. There's plenty of companies making things for particular railroad scales, so it's a great thing to have in mind. So what I've used here is products that Hornby make called a flexible flexi-track, I think they call it, and that means that you can curve it to whatever shape you want. And then the idea is that once you've got it in position on your track, some of these ties have got holes in them, and you put a little nail through that, little tack through that, and hammer it down to attach it down to your base, your tabletop, and it'll stay there. That's obviously not quite what we want to do. No, it can make some quite nice curves. And I did try very hard to work out how I could put curves onto the hexes. How could you have a curved track? Could you spread clearly a curve over a single hex was not going to work. It'd be far too tight a bend. I can't even bend it that much as I need to be. And eventually I came to the conclusion that even over multiple hexes, you go to a huge amount of effort for very little gain, that generally train tracks just don't bend that much. I remember being on holiday in Belgium and going to a train station. You look in one direction, and if you haven't been to Belgium or the Netherlands, they're incredibly flat, famously so. And you could look in one direction and the train line will be dead straight, going off as far as the eye can see. You look the other way, train track is dead straight as far as you can see. Doesn't bend, doesn't go up or down. So there are certainly plenty precedents for that. And I think you just have to accept that over the size of your wargaming table, if you have a train track on it, it's either going to be straight or very close to straight, and it's not going to make any tactical difference. So with hexes, I think this is one of the compromises you have to accept. Your train tracks are going to be straight. You can make your roads curve, but the tracks are going to be straight. One of the things you can do aesthetically to improve it so it doesn't feel like a straight line, bisecting your table in either direction, is I like to put these, have them go cut across the table at an angle. So just having a semi-hex with a track coming across it like this is a great way to just have that. It doesn't break it up as such. It's just the fact it's neither parallel nor perpendicular to the board edge. Makes those dead straight lines, to my mind, much more pleasing to the eye. And of course, it's only a piece. You don't have to put that in for a particular setup. You can turn it around, have it as you like. Have it go straight across the track. Doesn't matter. Straight across the board. But that's the way I like to do it. So what you want to do with this flexi track, these pieces, the ties they're called, can slide off. This one's a bit stiff here, but they will come off the track, off the rails. So you just need to decide how close together you want your ties to be. I end up making mine just slightly wider apart than they are on the rails here. The important thing really is that they're evenly spaced when you glue them down, and you want to make sure that the gap you have at each end of the hex is half the width of all the other gaps. The reason being that when you put two hexes together, you want the half width here and the half width here to add up to one width, and it just means that your ties will all be equally spaced. You won't have a double width gap where two hexes meet, which would be a bit needlessly disruptive to the eyes, wouldn't look as good. So you spread them out evenly. Here they all come attached, so I cut all my ties out so they're completely separate. Measure them, glue them down. I mean, it's up to you how careful you want to be, how much effort you want to put into it. Don't use the ties with the holes in, because you don't need to. That's only for, as I said earlier, for nailing on the track down. You need to nail it down. So glue them all on. They come black, typically, black plastic. So I've painted mine, and even the metal bits. I'm not a model railroader, so I can't tell you exactly these bits are called, but the bit that attaches the rail to the sleeper, these metal bits, maybe they're called the ties, I don't know. Dry brush this metal. I've made my sleepers kind of a brown wood, dry brushed with some grey. There's probably better techniques to make your wood look a bit more aged than that. And then you can use a product like this. This is sold by Wood and Scenics, who are a model railroading company who I use for my turf and everything else. It's called Ballast. So just put some glue in and pour it down in the gaps, and then you spray some more glue over the top. What they call scenic cement to hold it all in place. Put the turf on afterwards, and slide the rails in. What I haven't done with these rails, which I mean to do at some point, is to weather them. So these are all quite shiny. But since I needn't worry about conducting electricity, which obviously you do need to worry about if you're having a real model railroad, you can paint over these or something, so it doesn't matter if it's no longer conducting. And yeah, that's it really. One of the things I look forward to doing is building a railway bridge. So you have a road go underneath, and if all the railroad is built up, say on an embankment, you can have a bridge go under it. I think that'll be quite satisfying for World War II gaming. And also, I mentioned it in my Kickstarter video that one of the ideas I had was if you were to build one of these hexes where you've deliberately broken the rails, and you can just cut these with a hacksaw, by the way. It's the best way to get through the metal railing. Broke the rails, bent them up, char the earth with black paint and things like that to make it look like a one that's been explosives have been planted and sabotaged the railway. Then if that's one of the objectives during the battle, during the scenario, at the appropriate time you can take out whichever section of hex, because it could be anywhere along the length of it. You can take that one out, replace it with the charred one. I think that'd be quite a cool thing to do. One of the many sort of advantages you get to hexes is that you can swap them out during the battle to represent something that's changed. A bridge that's been blown up, so it's no longer crossable. Instead of having to put down just some counters on it, just take out your intact bridge and replace it with one that's destroyed. So yeah, railway hexes. I found them a little fiddly to make, but surprisingly satisfying. I really quite enjoyed making these ones. I look forward to making some more.